On today's edition of the CHGO Cubs-related podcast, the Cubs drop opening day, but Pete Crow-Armstrong and Nico Hoerner are here to stay. We will break it all down on today's edition of the CHGO Cubs-related podcast. This is the CHGO Cubs-related podcast presented by Bet365 and Toyota. Welcome in, folks. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan. We are coming to you on Friday. It is March 27th. And Brendan, the Cubs are 0-1. But, a big but, the vibes of opening day, as blah as they were, to go along with the Chicago weather that paired nicely in tandem, kind of immediately on the back burner after the game. We were already hyped about the Pete Crow-Armstrong extension, and after the game, Jed Hoyer says, you know what? Sorry about that opening day loss, everybody. Here it is, the news that Dr. Brendan Miller has waited a lifetime for. Nico Hoerner has been extended. He will be a Chicago Cub for another 6 years.
We have Alex Bregman, Dansby Swanson, PCA, Nico Hoerner extended through the decade. For many years, there felt as if Dansby was the guy who would just never leave, be forever a guy. And in a weird way now, he's the guy on the shortest contract. It's a very weird feeling to be in, because sometimes when you're going through the slogs of a season, you see these contracts start to end, you're thinking, are they going to actually extend them, especially after the last quarter? Are they going to wait things out? And not only do we get an extension, we get an extension, 6 years for Nico Hoerner. To say I was shocked is an understatement. Could not be more ecstatic.
Yeah, and so as we record this, we do not have the full details of this contract, the money, if there's any options, things like that. So obviously stay updated. We knew PCA had been extended, and then it was a rather extensive waiting period to get those financials. So stay tuned. CHGO Cubs socials will share that information. And, you know, shout out to our guy, friend of the show, Michael Cerami, who broke that news. Yeah. He's broken some big things, releasing a children's book. I mean, you know, leave some of this for the rest of us, Cerami, right? Like breaking news, writing books. Right. But congrats to him. It's a big story. So check the news. But that's the contract info we have as we discuss this. So agenda for today's show. Firstly, as we go forward through the season here, Brendan and I will be airing on Fridays. As you can see us, Luke, Joey, Justin will have you covered for post-game Monday through Thursday, or off-day shows on those days. And that will be your CHGO Cubs coverage. Obviously, any breaking news or urgent things that happen should they carry into Friday or over the weekend, we will assemble in some form or fashion, like we did the other night with me joining those fellas to break down the PCA extension news. But on today's episode, we'll talk about that. And I think primarily, Brendan, the longer term implications of these two extensions. It's a big deal, and it really does change the way we kind of look at this roster, this franchise, and how it operates going forward. And we will also talk about opening day. We will talk about how Matthew Boyd looked. I can give you my in-person vantage point. Now, granted, the weather was atrocious, but what an adventure for Matt Shaw in right field. That was very, very interesting to watch. We'll talk about the offense. We can talk about Ben Brown. But we're going to start with these extensions, as Brendan has not been on to offer his thoughts on PCA. I think the main thing that jumps out to me, Brendan, like the Nico news comes technically in the regular season, just over the buzzer of the regular season. But lumping it together with the off-season moves, the moves that really lead us into 2026, this is some good business from one Jed Hoyer, and from the organization as a whole. Like we dog on ownership and Tom when they don't spend money, but they've spent some money, not Dodger money, but they've signed big free agents, couple extensions, buying out free agent years, keeping one of your guys from free agency coming up. But you look back, like at the beginning of this offseason, Brendan, to sit here now and have Alex Bregman, Nico Hoerner now extended, PCA extended, Edward Cabrera brought into the fold, some really significant moves for Jed Hoyer. And I'm very pleased with this work from our president of baseball operations.
Extremely pleased. Each one of these extensions, they have a base. Crow-Armstrong has the base of defense. Dansby had the base of defense. Bregman has the base of defense and a unique skill set at the dish with the contact power and patience profile. These are deals that, of course, carry some risk.
Sure,
but
they all do.
Of course, but outside of the big splashes, the $300-400 million splashes, you accept some of the risk in these $100-200 million windows. Now, if the risk is, can Dansby's age curve hit the Cubs offense too hard, similar to Bregman's? For Crow-Armstrong will be, well, is the bat going to be good enough to justify the near $20 million AAV? For Nico now, it will be, can he sustain the offensive production without a power profile? That's why the base of their other skill sets, the defense, the base running, it's not just good, it is among the best in the league. And the way that is likely looking at this is through the scope of risk, but relative mitigated risk due to the defense, base running, and for some of the guys, an offensive profile that should age well, like Bregman's.
Yeah, and I think there's a few things that stand out. I think this is going to be a decent bulk of our conversation because it's very significant. And, look, we'll get into opening day, but it's one game out of 162. Like, I don't think we're going to have any grand takeaways, but I do want to dive into Matthew Boyd and what we saw, et cetera.
Of course. I mean, to your point, think about this. The year will be 2032. 2032.
How old am I by then? Oh man,
you're going to be in your 40s. Think about that. 2032. And Crow-Armstrong will just be finishing up his last year. Nico Hoerner, Alex Bregman will be 1 year removed from his last year. This is the core. The previous era, we're going to hear a lot about this because of the 2016 reunion. That era, to me, is officially way back in the window. And there was a weird bridge gap from 22 to 23 to 24. This era is what Cubs fans have been waiting for, to really bite their teeth into a tangible group of guys. And for 6 years, I can't even comprehend how long that truly is.
Right. I think there's a few things that, just stand out. And I think the first is when we came into this offseason, there was so much discussion about where did this roster stand going forward? Yeah. You were looking at Ian Happ on an expiring contract, Seiya, Nico,
Tyone.
You didn't. Yeah. Well, and the pitching staff, sticking to the position players. You didn't have Alex Bregman, right? Carson Kelly. And now you look at this group and you sort of see where these guys are in terms of their standing here. Right. And, you look at how you've locked this up for the next several years. Your whole infield is here for at least the next few years. Dansby is the first one to drop off, but you've got Busch, heading to arbitration. You have Nico now locked up for 6 years. You've got Dansby for a few more. Bregman, I believe, one more than that than Dansby?
Yeah, 5.
All locked up. You have PCA locked up out there. And look, what that means for Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki,
we'll see.
But it's such a transformative thing, Brendan, to look at this group. And I think that's one of the most important things is Jed has now given Like, this is a foundation for this next group. We kind of have these building blocks in place. And okay, going forward, if we lose those two corner outfielders, those will be the areas to replace. Maybe you look for other sluggers or power hitters to fill in whatever gaps there are. But you just have such a clearer picture of what this franchise looks like going forward, which seemed not impossible, but very difficult, or a lot of moving pieces when we entered this offseason.
Right. This was the ideal picture in 2017, 2018. You would extend that core. You would extend Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Hobby, and move their window an additional 6 years. Now, of course, that didn't happen. Their risk profiles are now well understood. And in hindsight, you can say, okay, Jed was right. The way the future is looking for the Cubs is one of projected value. And you mentioned the middle diamond, the infield defense. That to me is what makes me the most excited. I look at this too from an additional fan's perspective. I look at how the Cubs will be viewed 10, 15 years from now. You hear about all the historical teams. You hear about the 80s, you hear about the 60s, you hear about Sean Dunston and Ryan Sandberg. This era, 20, 30 years from now, will be in part defined by Nico Hoerner and Dansby Swanson. For me, I love that. I absolutely love that storyline. Then you layer Pete Crow-Armstrong on top of that narrative. Well, the narrative becomes, man, back then, that Cubs defense, let me tell you about that Cubs defense. And it just perpetuates what I enjoy most about baseball. And those three personalities in particular leading the charge. I'm ecstatic. It's, I think, one that's likely going to produce value, but also one that's likely going to produce fan value and fan retainment over time.
Yeah, I think I love both of these extensions. We don't know the number exactly on Nico, but
I mean, I'm scared there might be some options in there. Truthfully, I want this 6 years guarantee. Give him the money he wants. Just lock it up.
Well, and we'll see. I think that's always a question. And even if they have the options, he obviously seemed like he wanted to stay here, and this is certainly a show of good faith. And look, I would imagine that the Cubs had we heard enough rumors, some suitors after him. So it's interesting to think. I don't know, but how close Jed maybe was to pulling a move like that. And obviously that's a move they said no to, at least even just the reports that are readily available out there, and someone they clearly wanted to keep and valued. But yeah, I mean, I love both of these moves because of what you've already said, the speed, the base running, and the defense primarily. I think Pete is it's not spread out this way, but AAV of 19-ish million a year.
19-ish.
Listen, if we're wrong, we're wrong. There's no way that this is not a steal for the Chicago Cubs. I have so much belief in Pete, and even at the lower end of my belief in Pete, his excellent defense, his base running, and the fact that this extension only takes you, it's not like he's going to be 35 years old at the end of this contract, right? It works out for both sides. And with Nico, he is such a unique player in what he brings to a lineup. We felt that heavily in the playoffs as we were watching some of the other guys strike out and struggle against some of the velocity that the Padres and Brewers had. Meanwhile, Nico, excellent as ever in the batter's box, putting the bat on the ball, getting on base, getting those base hits, keeping the line moving. And it's hard to find those players. It's no slight against Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki and their contributions and their ceilings and what they bring to this team, right? But when you think forward, I do tend to think, Brendan, that a power hitting corner outfielder can be easier to find at times than what Nico brings to the table. And now how that ages, of course, there's risk with anything.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. But I think in a vacuum, you look at these moves and it gives you such a foundation and a core to believe in. And it's not to belabor the 2021 deadline and all that other stuff, But that was so much of the discussion and sort of what leads you into those few down years that you just mentioned, that you had a lot of roster turnover. You didn't have a ton of guys locked in. Now, of course, some of that would have been a big mistake looking back in hindsight, but it left you in a spot where it was like, all right, we have to turn this over. We don't have this foundation set and kind of taking us and bridging us for the next several years. We got to tear this thing down. And at least right now, as Cubs fans, we can look and say, this is the group. We have that foundation. How you build around it each year, each offseason remains to be seen. But it's a very strong place to start for Jed Hoyer and his front office. So we're going to hit our first ad break here. We'll come back. We'll keep talking Nico, PCA, and this Cubs roster for years to come.
Okay, good, better, best. Chicago is home to the most iconic three-word slogan in American sports. But today, Bet365 is honoring that shirtless rally cry with a three-word motto of their own: early payout offer. Here's the deal. If your team goes up by 10 points at any point in the game, Bet365 pays out your bet right there and then. It's Bet365 where winning is everything. Once you finally turn off lower whacker and get your cell phone service back, download the app. If you're a new user, they're running a massive promo. Bet $5, give $150 in bonus bets. Just deposit $10 and place a $5 bet. It's that easy. It's easier than riding the red line from Addison to 35th. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please gamble responsibly. Must be present in Illinois. $10 minimum deposit required. Bonus bet wager excluded from returns. New customers only. 21 and over. Time limits, minimum odds, and terms and conditions do apply. Void where prohibited. Now, what if you could have Wi-Fi that wasn't just fast, but actually intelligent? And what if you could keep the connection at the exact same price for 5 whole years? That's the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Is about more than just a monthly bill. It's about the total peace of mind, the Alex Bregman contract, if you will. 5 years. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes your device and your home work together in perfect harmony. We're talking about a connection with 6 sense that finds and fixes problems before you even notice them. It's a kind of power that lets you stream the big game in 4K, even when the rest of the family is online. All that performance locked in for 5 whole years. Here's the best part: no annual contracts, no hidden fees, and Xfinity's best equipment is already included. A lock and change in 5 years. Championships are won, records are broken, and dreams grow bigger. But while the world moves fast, your Wi-Fi should stay reliable. Lock in your price. Unlock the possibilities today. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Select plans only, and restrictions do apply.
All right, Brendan, back with you. But yeah, like looking at this, like PCA through 2032, Nico 2033, Dansby 2029, Bregman 2030, Busch 2029. Like that's your group, and that's such a solid group. Again, such a foundation. There's areas where you can look at that and say, okay, well, here's what they're going to need. Here's the production that they're going to need to find elsewhere, just based on the profile of these guys. But this gives Jed such a clearer picture. And I want to go back to, we've talked about this a little bit. I love seeing the full activity of this organization that we have seen in the last, calendar year or whatever it is. You beat out the Boston Red Sox and anybody else that was a suitor for Alex Bregman. You go over the top, you defer money, you sort of break with some practices that previously you had not engaged in. You trade your top prospect. You bring in a cost-controlled starting pitcher with a huge ceiling in Edward Cabrera. Now you're extending a young pre-arb player and a talented homegrown guy on an expiring contract. This is what you want to see from a big-time organization. Yeah. Making moves in all facets of the game. They have every resource available to them. It's not just about spending huge money on veteran free agents. It's about using all of those resources that you have as an organization that has more money than most of these teams and spreading that out in the different ways that you can build a baseball team. Right. And it seems simple or straightforward to say, but we haven't seen them doing each and every one of these things over the last several years. And so to watch Jed build this roster in so many different ways and attacking different avenues of getting what he felt he needed for this team and building what he felt he needed for the future. And also in PCA and Nico's case, congratulations to Carter Hawkins because of the 2032 Cubs.
He was right all along. Look at that. Carter, you slide
2031, on. Right?
Yeah.
But that is something that really stood out. And like I said, I don't want to pat ownership on the back for spending money. It's something they should have been doing at higher levels. But I do think it's reasonable. If we're going to dog them when they don't do it at all, they've done a good bit of it. It takes money to make these things happen. You're putting guaranteed money on the books, and Jed is certainly going to Tom saying, listen, this is what I need to get these things done. And this is how we're going to sustain success. And this is where I need you to meet me to get some of these things done. It seemed like they did that for Alex Bregman. And, for all intents and purposes, Tom doesn't have to greenlight extensions for pre-arb players. He can say, listen, we're not paying PCA. We have him for all this time. Go to arbitration. Don't talk to me about this. And that's not the case. And clearly they gave Nico a number that kept him here and kept him happy and made him feel valued and not in the immediate hitting that market and seeing if maybe somebody wants him to play shortstop and give him a little bit of more money. So at this moment, just some very healthy behavior, Brendan, from this organization. It's extremely nice to see.
I'm surprised Nico is extended, just straight up front, because I thought he would gamble on himself for shortstop value, not absolute shortstop value. But if I were Nico, I would play out this year. I would see how the power progresses. If there's intent to improve power, I would see how the roster shapes out where he's maybe playing more shortstop unexpectedly. Then you enter the market as a commodity that is in part shortstop driven value. For the Cubs, they may have spent more money to stop that possibility from happening. If that's the case, absolutely, you have to give the front office credit for not letting that happen. It will be curious to see what the actual money is. I would guess around 20 million annual average value. If that's the case, then we're guaranteeing Alex Bregman about 31, Dansby Swanson's 28, Pete Crow-Armstrong just a touch over 19, and then you have Nico maybe around 20-ish or so. It's not crazy when you look at recent years because they've spent similar money on multiple guys. Yeah. Matthew Boyd, 17. Jameson Taillon, 18. Shota Imanaga, now with the $20 million qualifying offer, but he was north of 15. Seiya Suzuki. They've done this before in approaching $20 million contracts. In this case, it's the timing. It's the Nico extension preventing the free agency. It's the P. Crow-Armstrong prevention of 2 years in free agency. In a way, the philosophy is maintained, but the context has allowed it to happen where they're spending on existing guys. In the previous core, you're looking at MVP guys entering free agency and Chris Bryant. Anthony Rizzo as a bona fide top 10 hitter in the league for multiple years, and Javi Baez with a ceiling that was enormous, which Detroit paid.
You were staring at 3 potentially massive contracts.
Correct. And in this case, though, we love Pete's, we see MVP caliber potential, but it wasn't as obvious and as even with precedence with KB on the table. So the context does align. I don't think the Cubs front office got out of their shoes too much. I see your point. I see ownership's point. But in some respect, this is how they've operated. It's in a different fashion on existing players.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. And I think, those annual average values, I'm looking at that and I'm like, that sounds like they have plenty of room for Tarek Skubal in the rotation.
Look at that.
Sounds great.
Only up $40 million for that.
Sign me up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pumped about this.
Are you surprised Nico was extended? I mean, let me be honest with you. Okay. I got your text and first off, I nearly blacked out, but I couldn't believe it. I thought if he were to be extended, I was thinking 3 years, 4 years, and I see the number 6 and I'm wondering, did I drop my phone and did my screen crack? Is that a crooked number? So for me, I was really surprised they spent $6 million on Nico's profile. We can get into what that means and why,
Sure.
but truly surprised they spent that much money
Well,
on those years.
look, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an element, Brendan, like we don't know what's going to happen with the CBA. And so, trying to have some idea of what your roster looks like and the money you do have on the books, like it seems like a useful exercise, right? Like just having some semblance of like, okay, here's the contracts, here's the guaranteed money, here's what we look like for the next several years. Having that all in flux heading into a potential lockout
it's not a good feeling.
is not necessarily an untenable place, but an uncertain one, and would maybe leave you a little uncomfortable as an organization. So yeah, was I surprised? I mean, yeah, just because that, like, I don't know, even though it's not a real deadline, like I just kind of thought, well, they did the Pete thing and now it's opening day. So
yeah, I thought it was done.
Like this feels like this period is over. Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, okay, there's a chance they announce it last night or 2 nights ago when you're listening to this on Wednesday night. I'm thinking just like 3 years ago and they extended Nico and Hap then, maybe we get that extension. Of course, opening day comes around. Nico is asked about it. Nico's saying, I'm just focusing on the 2026 season. That sneaky guy, Nico Hoerner. And then a few hours later, of course, the news drops. So, I mean, floored. Absolutely floored. Could not be more ecstatic. It's going to be one hell of a 6-year stretch, Corey.
Yeah. And, look, like you consider it's not this full time period for Nico, but you have Cabrera for a few more years. You have Cade Horton, who is obviously at the beginning of his time. Yeah. We talked about Michael Busch. And, it makes guys now, of course, it's especially when Seiya comes back, a little harder to figure where Matt Shaw is playing every day. This is not exactly the news he was hoping for, I don't think.
Well, he's still enormously valuable.
Of course. But what I mean is, like, the attention turns a little bit to guys like him and Moises Ballesteros and maybe even Miguel.
That is interesting, though. If you are Matt Shaw, you got Bregman locked up for 5 years, Dansby for 4, Nico for 6.
He's like, hey, this one was my position, and this was the one that I was going to take. Like, what the heck? Yeah,
that is, I do wonder what he's thinking.
Better get ready to learn right field, buddy.
Was he that bad out there, in your opinion, today? When you say it was a show?
We'll talk about it. But
he was drifting a little bit.
I don't think you can judge in the conditions today. Like,
okay, we'll talk about that after the next
freezing rain and the wind was howling in his direction. I think that's a tough first assignment for him. But it does put, not pressure, but it does dial in the focus, on those guys like Michael Busch continuing the growth that he's shown and the production he's shown. He has a great opening day, so he certainly looks ready to go.
We'll talk about that. Busch in the next
but Ballesteros, Shaw, like finding that next group now that you have a good chunk of this roster locked in for several years, finding that next group, and you do have a good bit of it on the pitching side, especially once some of those expiring contracts go. But that next group of, here are our pre-ARB or ARB eligible guys that are also big time contributors to this team to round out now these settled contracts across the infield and with one Peter Crow-Armstrong in center field. So when we come back, we'll get into 2026 and all that other stuff. But I did want to start there because, again, like you go back to the beginning of this offseason and, still on the pitching side, like some stuff you have a lot of expiring contracts. You have young players, Steele coming back from injury, sort of seeing what that looks like as the season develops. But boy, like talk about a shift from where we were in the offseason, a much clearer picture on the position player side. And I can only hope, especially Ian Happ doesn't feel a little left out right now, on the party here.
I mean, maybe he gets his tomorrow. That's how it goes, right?
Right. But let's hit our next ad break here, and then we will come back and we will talk more about this roster. Of course, they're all part of it for a good while now, but we will talk about opening day. We'll talk about Matthew Boyd and kind of dial in our focus back to 2026 as much as I'm looking forward to the 2028 Chicago Cubs, Brendan.
Well, 2032. Okay. You know what Toyota says? Let's put good times in gear with the Tundra, Tacoma, and 4Runner. If you want some cool available features, we've got powered tailgates to power game days and a trailer backup guide. That's champ of the ramp. Heck, we might even cancel Monday to go take one of these bad boys out. Toyota trucks, find yours at toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also, become a CHGO diehard today. Upgrade your fandom. Get access to our exclusive written content, a free t-shirt, plenty of discounts and future merch and events, plus access to our CHGO Discord lounge where we all hang out and talk Chicago sports and so much more. Sarah, put up those new merch, those new shirts that we got. Look at that. Look at that little Cub guy. Love it. We have 5 different shirts. My personal favorite is the Chicago flag. So go to allchgo.com for the latest information. We cannot wait to connect with you on an ever greater level. Is your home's heating up for the challenge? Well, now's the time to schedule your 4 Seasons furnace tune-up. Thinking about a whole home generator? We've got you covered at 4 Seasons. We guarantee same-day installation for all your heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and generator needs with no extra charge for nights, weekends, or holidays. You can save up to $4,000 on furnaces and comfort systems with 4 Seasons, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. Furnaces start at $39 a month and furnace AC combos from $57 a month. Call today, save $50 from your trusted local experts. 4 Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. They've been serving the Chicagoland for over 50 years. Your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. So visit them at 4seasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. Again, 4seasonsheatingcooling.com.
All right, Brendan, back with you. Let's talk a little opening day. I think the most important thing on everybody's mind, let's talk about Ben Brown. No, I'm kidding. Maybe we'll get to that.
I want to start there with Shaw. Like, give me, sure. I mean, you're at the game. So what were the conditions like?
The conditions were not good.
I mean, it was raining. It looked cold.
I do think, oddly, the vibes of opening day, if you put it to speak your language, Brendan. Yeah. I didn't prepare one for you, but you can envision a graph, if you will.
Oh, wow.
I think if you charted the vibes of opening day,
sure,
right, along with the weather in Chicago, Illinois, yeah. I think they ran exactly parallel to each other. Took the dog out in the morning, felt pretty good. Sun was out, mild temperature, was wearing a short sleeve shirt. Vibes good. It's opening day, heading to Wrigley. You've got John Vincent, Anthony Rizzo's there. The Cubs Hall of Famers are there. Just there's a flyover. There's fireworks. Excellent vibes, right? Alex Bregman's first day at Wrigley Field. PCA's just been extended and straight down. And similar to the weather that also turned into freezing rain by the end of the game. Super windy, blowing mostly straight to right field. Sometimes a little in, sometimes a little out, but, right in that direction. I think I don't think he ended up misplaying anything actually, like on the ledger. But I mean, the wrong read nearly every time. Breaking in should have broken out, breaking left should have broken right, and he corrected it a few times because he's a good athlete. But again, like, right field at Wrigley Field is extremely difficult.
It's his first time out there.
It's his first time. And this weather, if I was him, I'd be like, this, you got to be kidding me. Like, I'm trying to learn a new position. I can't just get like a regular day, maybe a little bit of wind, but like, I can imagine him trying to track some of these balls and just being like, this is crazy. Like, get me back at third base where I'm just trying to pick balls off the ground. But yeah, I mean, it's his first time, and he made some catches. So ultimately, I don't think it cost the Cubs anything, and we'll see how he goes out there on a at least slightly more normal day. And just as he gets his footing in there, it's a tough place to play right field.
Now that you see it in action, the thought that comes to my mind is it worth the risk? Now, should they have explored shoring up the outfield depth? And in an aggressive way, maybe have explored a trade that could have involved Shaw. It's the first day, not overreacting, but when you see it, you start getting these thoughts in your mind.
Yeah.
The Cubs are projected for a 90-92 win team. they don't really have much room for error in terms of like the high caliber projections, the Dodgers, etc. If they're one injury, two injuries down, then their win total is going to drop pretty significantly. So if Seiya misses a lot of time, well, then their playoff odds do take a significant hit. If they had more depth beyond Seiya, then of course you'd spend money to do that, but they can withstand an injury that could last a few weeks. I'm watching Shaw out there like you. I'm seeing he's drifting. I don't think he can't do it. I'm wondering if he can do it in the timeline that makes sense for the Cubs.
It's a tough exercise. And I think, third base, a much more natural transition. This was a tough task for him as well, but a much more natural transition from the positions that he had actually played throughout his career. This is tough. And, especially for a guy that has undergone significant adjustments at the plate and, still trying to really settle in his footing there, this is a tall ask. I mean, if he were able to pull this off at, even an average or slightly below it, I think even level, it would be extremely impressive to go along with trying to make these adjustments at the plate at, what is he, 23, 24? Yeah. Like this is a very difficult task. So yeah, I hear you. And it's one of those things where the Seiya injury, obviously he was flirting with doing this a little bit anyway, but the Seiya injury has brought it into, sort of a necessity. Like if you want him in the lineup on certain days where you also want to get Ballesteros in there, like you got to figure out how to play right field. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, but I definitely want to give him more than, what was going on today, because I'm under the roof and I have a wall behind me where there's an elevator and I can still feel that wind just like blasting and like looking at the flags. I mean, they were just howling to right field. So I don't want to make a judgment there, but yeah, I hear you on the overall situation. And I'll be curious to see when Craig Counsell, if and when he, mixes a guy like Dylan Carlson out there, and, or where those guys are playing, how often him and Conforto are getting in the lineup, et cetera, et cetera. So things to be seen, but, getting into it, obviously Luke, Joey, and Justin had you for opening day post-game coverage on Thursday evening, but the Nationals do win 10-4, Matthew Boyd taking the loss. And I want to transition to talking about Matthew Boyd. 3 2/3, 6 hits, 6 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, and 1 home run. Sort of a tale of 2 games for Matthew Boyd here. Started, got a ton of whiffs, and I think generally looked good in the early going. Some hard contact, I think even in the beginning as well. But overall, like was generating a good number of whiffs. Looked like he had his stuff working. And then as the game went on, velo went down a bit, command left him, and he was getting knocked around pretty good. Always, again, on a day like this, it really, with the conditions, hard to say how some of these balls look on a normal day or whatever, but it definitely felt, and, you see it in the results, like it felt like he was getting knocked around sitting there at Wrigley Field. I didn't care so much about like the urgency of getting a reliever up. It's opening day. Like, we don't need to treat this like it's Game 7 of the World Series. But in a more important situation, like the hook would have been there, I think, a lot earlier. I think it was clearer that they were seeing him good. The Nationals started getting aggressive when that command was leaving him, and they were knocking him around pretty good. Yeah,
the stuff looked pretty good. You talked about the command. I saw the same thing. You talked about the whiffs. I was very impressed by the whiffs. In 2023 and 2024, he had a particular slider that was slower. I don't know if this is a real thing or not. It's one game. His slider was thrown 3 miles per hour faster than last year, whereas his fastball velocity was the same, changeup was the same, curveball was the same. The slider was just up almost 3 miles per hour, but the movement was exactly the same. So the slider shape was the same, but with more velocity. Why is that? Spin was up. I'm looking to see if that's something that's just, random. If I had to guess, it probably is random. It's one game. But if he's able to show that slider and keep showing the shapes of those other pitch types, to me, that's the most important trend to monitor. If the stuff decreases, it means the age is catching up. If the stuff looks the same, which currently does look the same, then in my mind, the age-related decline does not become likely. That's my biggest fear for Matthew Boyd. As he enters his mid-30s, going through his second full year of a major workload, my question is, can he get through the year? And to start the year without showing any fatigue, that's kind of a sigh of relief. And then in addition, seeing, okay, maybe there's a little bit of a tweak here. It's beyond what I wanted to see from the first few weeks of spring and the first game. Dialing in on the breaking pitch, very encouraged to see the stuff looking so good.
Yeah, and I think, look, like with a guy like Boyd, we saw, him kind of fade at the end of 2025, of course, much talked about with him and Shota. And so, of course, coming into this year, like that was going to be top of everybody's mind. Like, how does he rebound from that? Does that happen again? And of course, starting a little early, which, I think he was probably the main guy that now, of course, Seiya got hurt in this, but I think Boyd was probably the main guy that most of us were like, I kind of wish you were not pitching in the WBC, right? Like with how 2025 ended, like maybe like do a normal, Mesa ramp up, man. Like, but we've talked about that. People want to play for their country, and I respect that. So it's one start, and he did look crisp in the early portion of this game. And it's one start.
I think, like, honestly, if you were to have Boyd throw that exact game 9 out of 10 times, I think in 8 of those games, he gives up no runs. I mean, I'm looking at the profile right now. The biggest reason for the second half decline was the fastball was mislocated, slightly lower than it was in the first half of last year. I'm looking at this profile right now. Fastballs are located at the top of the zone, changeups in the lower right quadrant, sliders in the same window. Like everything looks to be exactly where you want it. I think it was a byproduct of just honestly randomness. He does this 9 out of 10 times. You probably have success.
Yeah, and look, like I think especially for veterans like this, you got to give them a second to settle in, warm up. You know what I mean? We saw a little more, I think, 92, 93 from him today as the game went on. And, again, like, got to give these guys a second to settle in here. I don't want to react too much to one start. I don't think there's a point in that. And look, anytime a guy is generating whiffs like that, it's a good sign of things. Like, you need to sustain it.
Look at this. I put up a new graph, Sarah. Sorry about this. So here's the zone profile on the left. You see, like, everything's on the black edge of the plate, Corey. You see that? Like those fastballs up top, changeup, green changeups right below the zone, sliders on the opposite mirror side. Like everything's on the edge. And I did this intentionally. Yep.
Is Ben Brown's mostly being in the middle a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, you ask me, man. You were at the game right there, right? But like that is the contrast when you see Boyd locate so well, and you see Ben Brown giving up home runs. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Everything is in the heart.
Yeah, and I think it goes along with a lot of these discussions that we've had in this rotation. Matthew Boyd was the best pitcher in this rotation for a good part of the season last year. But as he grows in age, and as you brought up, like a guy, with the significant workload and like seeing how that goes for a second straight year, you want those other guys to step up. You want Horton or Cabrera or Steele when he comes back, even like to be those, like taking that place of like, I'm the best pitcher in this rotation, and not necessarily relying on Matthew Boyd to be that exact person that he was in the first half. There's a big difference.
Great, though. I'll take it.
Of course. But there's just a big difference between like exactly that and, he's old and was bad in the WBC. Like, so let's freak out. It's like he doesn't need to be that first thing. He just needs to be a solid starting pitcher in this rotation. And one start into the year, I don't have any doubt that he will end up being that for the Cubs in 2026.
It becomes a matter of what do you expect? I expect bad value when the pitches become different. I expect to some degree similar value when the pitches look the same. So if you're going to make an argument, why is Matthew Boyd going to be bad for the next 3 weeks? I'm looking at all of this stuff. I don't see a convincing argument that he's likely going to be bad. In fact, I see the other way. I see the next few weeks a convincing argument that he's probably going to be pretty good. It's a question of whether he can sustain this in June and July? That is the ultimate question. But right now, over the course of the offseason, zero decline, zero fatigue. You have to be encouraged by that.
Yeah. So let's hit our last ad break here, and then we will come back. I think switch to the position player side of things. I want to talk about the lineup that we saw and what we saw from this offensive group in game 1 of 162.
Can you believe we're already a quarter of the way into 2026? If you're like me, the new year, new me energy is starting to collide with the reality of a chaotic schedule. Between the long hours and trying to keep up with all of my extracurricular activities, my nutrition is the first thing that falls off the rail, but Huel has been the absolute fix for that part of my routine. Honestly, the Black Edition ready to drink saves my life on those mornings when I'm just sprinting out the door. Instead of skipping breakfast or hitting a drive-thru, I just grab one of these. It's a complete meal with 35 grams of protein and 27 essential vitamins and minerals. And the best part is no artificial sweeteners or colors, and is under $5, way faster than meal prep, and actually fills me up for hours while I'm focused on meetings. Right now, you can get Huel with our exclusive offer, 15% off online for new customers only. Head to Huel.com/Cubs. 15 and use code Cubs15. Huge thank you to Huel for partnering with us and supporting the show. If you're busy, this is a total game changer. Is there anything better than baseball in Chicago? Being at the corner of Clark and Addison, smelling the grass and hearing the crack of the bat, it is just the best. But let's be real, actually getting tickets, that is a nightmare. I've spent way too much time staring at spinning loading wheels and filling out endless forms only to have the price jump $50 at the checkout screen because of convenience fees. It's frustrating when all you want to do is be at the friendly confines with my good friend Corey Freedman and the rest of the fans. I was just browsing the app for an upcoming game, and I can see, oh, those look pretty good. I used a seat view to get a panoramic look at the field before my section, before I even hit buy. If you find a better deal elsewhere for the same seats, Game Time will credit you 110% off the difference. Plus, with their ticket coverage for things like event cancellations, you know they actually have your back. Game Time, take the stress out of the box office. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Cubs for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that is Game Time.
Brendan, just for your awareness, I do have security at Wrigley Field aware of what you look like, and you're not allowed anywhere near my section. So
that's not nice, I'll find a way.
No, that's not true. We watched the Cubs lose a playoff game together.
That's true.
That's our fondest memory together.
Say one word to each other.
The Cubs won the World Series that year, Brendan. I think maybe that was what needed to happen.
That's right. Now, to be fair, you and I were at Dodger Stadium the very next week in Game 5, and we propelled them to that World Series right after.
Right.
Just
the
saying.
First game, the loss at home was a test.
That's
we
right.
We needed to go through that trial and tribulation to ultimately come out at the end.
Yep.
So let's talk about the position player group on opening day. I want to go through the lineup. Now, obviously, things will change when Seiya Suzuki is back in the fold. Of course, that will change the way this lineup looks and how Craig Counsell deploys this position player group. But on opening day against Cade Cavalli and the Washington Nationals, we see Michael Busch, Alex Bregman, Ian Happ, Pete Crow-Armstrong, Nico Hoerner, Carson Kelly, Moises Ballesteros, Dansby Swanson, and Matt Shaw. The only change in that lineup throughout the game is Michael Conforto pinch hits for Matt Shaw late in the game. So any thoughts on the lineup? Any surprises? Obviously, without Seiya, we can sort of assume where he plugs in, but technically we haven't seen the full picture just yet. But it's always an interesting thing as we break into the regular season to see, okay, how did this track with the spring training lineups, and what is Craig actually doing now that these games count? So any thoughts just on lineup construction, in so much as lineup construction matters, and we can do a whole separate episode about that.
It looks similar to last year when Kyle Tucker was batting in the lineup. He was second. Michael Busch was leadoff after Ian Happ went down during that stretch last year. I'm not surprised. If there's one big surprise, maybe Nico batting fifth, but we saw Nico up in the order later in 2025 as well. No surprises. There's a trend around the league to give your best hitters the most at-bats. Shohei Ohtani bats leadoff for several games for the Dodgers. This is how the new age baseball world thinks. Michael Busch getting the most at-bats on a day-to-day basis. Sign me up for that, Corey. And I thought he looked fantastic.
He did.
Yet again. The check swing double down the left field line was a fun way to start the year. I thought he was going to score on that, but so be it. I'm encouraged to see Craig continue to give Michael Busch opportunities, continuing to trust him at the leadoff spot. And I think once we have Seiya Suzuki back, it will probably be Bregman, Busch, Seiya in some fashion in the top three.
Yeah. Michael Busch did look great.
He did.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like he's underrated and just discussed, right? Like, he had such a great year last year, and the value he provides this team at a pre-arb rate is exactly what I had hoped to see 2 years ago. Because let's say Hap and Seiya do leave the team after next year. You talked about this 35 minutes ago. Well, you can use those corner outfielders in those spots to upgrade. Well, you also, if you can get first base locked up again and be 100% sure about Busch, then that money, instead of spending $20 million in left field, okay, let's level up. Let's spend $30 million. It gives the Cubs so much more flexibility if it continues to be as good as he was over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can go through the numbers last year, and where he was in amongst first basemen in this league. I mean, and this was a top 5 first baseman in baseball on the offensive side. Now, of course, some people say, well, he didn't play all that time against lefties, and I mean that's part of the picture. But if you're just looking, wins above replacement, like he was still up there, whether he was doing it or not. So he continues to just what a swing from Jed Hoyer at a position of need, and he just continues.
He's a unique case. He's a unique case.
Because I know you've gone through before that, it shouldn't be happening this way.
Yeah. So I was very busy last night. I was making graphs nonstop. Okay. One of the more interesting trends to pop up when I was looking at all the different batters was how Busch has his success. As the foundation, he is someone that does not swing the bat fast. If you look at the top tier hitters in the league, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Schwarber, their bat speed's through the roof. They have a swing plane that allows them to leverage that bat speed. For Busch, he's not really like that. He has average to slightly below league average bat speed. He has a swing plane that's really uppercut. So he kind of needs to make sure he barrels up the ball. So what I wanted to see from Busch last year, I wanted to understand when he's good, why is he good? When he's bad, why is he bad? What can we learn from that? And what we learned from that is when he is hot, which on the left here in this graph, these are a 20 rolling event, every batted ball summed up, average over 20 batted balls, and is expected well, but from the top to the bottom. Now, when he's in the red zone, interestingly enough, he doesn't have much loft on his swing. I just told you he's a natural uppercut swing. He actually is at his best when he doesn't have as much loft. Also, too, when he's attempting, we can assume, attempting to pull the ball, he's better. When he's trying to go the other way, he actually is at his worst. Now, this is all relative. And then when he's trying to stay short to the ball, he's at his best. So in some respect, what we learned from Busch last year is that he kind of has to dial in his natural tendencies. Yeah, he has a steep swing, but make sure it's not that steep. Yeah, he has a tendency to use all the fields, but you know what? Really try to capitalize on pulling the ball a little bit more. And don't worry about your bat speed. If you can stay short, barrel up the ball, stay on plane, keep yourself within your zone, you can have success. What I want to see is if that sustains itself this year, because he is a unique case. Many guys don't have his profile. I'm not saying it's something to be concerned about, but you do need to see more examples, a little bit of a longer track record to start seriously discussing extensions or long-term viability, at least in my opinion.
Sure. But all the while, it's still fun to be along the ride.
Of
And,
course.
you know, I have that belief in him, man. Like he just, you know, even like his ability to kind of like go for his pitches and barrel them up and like do damage with them is really impressive.
Yeah.
It's really impressive to watch. And, you know, obviously with anything else, one game, but awesome to see him come out of the gate like that, stay in that leadoff spot and just come out as hot as he left off. It's a nice thing to see.
You know what prompted him being successful? I swear to God, it's so sad. Like when you watch him, watch the pre-pitch routine. He does this little hip thing. Have you noticed this? You know what I'm
I
talking
don't
about?
think so.
Okay, watch him when he's at the dish. So he kind of like goes like this. And I swear to God, when he started doing that early in last season, like his swing was like shorter and more fluid. I'm telling you, watch the game tomorrow. He's going to do the same thing. He has a little bit of a hip thing right before the first pitch.
Okay. Sure. I did want to ask you too, like, and this actually a good segue as we, you know, wrap up here, but I did want to ask you, you know, you fixate on a lot of these little things, Pete's toe tap, his pre-pitch cues, all these little things. Obviously we are in the games that we're able to watch during spring training. We have the ability to see what they're doing and see what they're working on. But now that we're in the season, they're playing at Wrigley Field, this game counts. Any of that stand out to you? Was there any of that going on, or
a lot of them look pretty similar? I mean, Pete in particular,
similar to
last year.
Okay,
how last year ended. When Pete debuted in spring, a little bit of a different look to his batting stance, a little bit of a hover. Went to the WBC, exactly the same as last year in 25. Came back from the WBC. There's a few at bats where he's kind of doing the hover thing again, but he looked pretty similar. You know what was interesting? Matt Shaw. The guy makes more changes.
Hard to keep track of, honestly.
It's insane. So he's no longer having an open stance. He's back to being like, now he's parallel. It looks like a hybrid between the most extreme version of March of 25 and October of 25, just merged together. Like, it's very interesting to watch him.
By the time it's all said and done, do you think you will have dissected and diagnosed more swing and mechanic changes from Matt Shaw or Jason Hayward?
That's a good one.
In your time as an analyst,
I think naturally it's going to be Matt Shaw because he has so many things going on.
If he's doing 5 a season, like
he literally did 5 last year. He's already on number 2 this year.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I mean, look, disappointing, you know, having been there. It was, you know, it's excellent to be back at Wrigley Field. Crowd was great until the freezing rain came down. And then I think a lot of people, that was timed almost exactly with Ben Brown, the lead jumping to 7-2 when Brown came in. So not a good period for the crowd. If people were flirting with like, oh, this weather might send me home, that was kind of a, okay, like, yeah. But, you know, Rizzo's there. Always good to be back at Wrigley Field. We wait 6 months all off season just to be back at beautiful historic Wrigley Field. So nice to be there. Unfortunate to not get the W, but 161 to go. And I got to tell you, Brendan, I missed the, you know, sort of visceral feeling of, you know, watching them. What did they go? I think 4 for 19 with runners in scoring position, you know, leaving 9 on base. I'm like, oh, we're so back. I missed the game of baseball. We're complaining about the bullpen and Discord. I'm like, yes, we are back. Baseball is back. And I at least appreciate that in my wizened age, I am able to kind of brush it off.
I know. I was the same way.
When I was 12, I would be irate. Tonight.
Oh, this would have ruined my night.
There would be no talking sense into me. Like, Corey, there's 161 games left. That's one game. It was 35 degrees.
Should have made the team.
You know, they're going to be better than the Nationals. Like why? What do you? Wouldn't work. I would be freaking out and inconsolable. So it's called growth, people. It only took
you 20 years.
It only takes you 30 years to get there. Yeah. But ask me, you know, as we get towards September and October, if I'm breaking remote controls or not, and then we'll talk about that growth. But good to be back. Some really exciting news with PCA and Nico Hoerner this week. And hopefully the Cubs go get him this weekend. Want to shout out the CHGO Cubs new merch collection for 2026. You can head over to allchgo.com and check all of that out. Get fitted. You want to be wearing the same merch and clothes as one Maverick Luke Stuckmeyer. So that, of course, is your opportunity and to support the show. As I said at the outset, Brendan and I will be with you on Fridays going forward. Luke, Joey, and Justin, our wonderful CHGO Cubs team, will have you for off day and post-game shows Monday through Thursday. And we are always ready. If Jed Hoyer has more extensions in him, we have more emergency shows in us. So happy to be back. We'll go get them over the weekend and get this regular season started in earnest. But happy opening day, even though it wasn't. Congrats to PCA and Nico. Enjoy that money. You deserve it, boys. We're happy to have you here. Brendan and I will talk to you again next Friday. And as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.